to the Everything, Anything, and a Bit Gay podcast. I'm Zachary Randles Friedman. Today I have a really interesting topic I think that will resonate with many of you. I am going to talk about how I turned 50 and the thoughts I had. So if you are not 50 yet, and a lot of my friends are kind of on that border where they're getting ready to turn 50, and or they'll be turning 50 in the next couple of years, or they have already turned 50. And I believe some of them have had some of these thoughts because we've talked about some of these topics I'm going to talk about. Or you are in your early 40s or 30s, or you're getting ready to turn 30, or I have a wide range of friends. And but I think one day what I'm talking about will resonate with you if it hasn't already. So I had started thinking about turning 50 a couple of years before I turned 50. So my husband, Andrew, is 53. So he's 2 years and 3 months older than I am. And we were in the house during COVID whenever he turned 50. And so we had this huge idea for when he turned 50, we're going to take this big vacation to Vietnam and Thailand and Cambodia and do this entire Asia trip for like 3 weeks to celebrate this huge milestone birthday. And COVID put a damper on that. We definitely were not going to go to Asia, and we couldn't travel anywhere at that point because I don't even think there was a vaccine out on his birthday in 2020. And we ended up having to stay home for his birthday and order Joe Stone Crabs to have them delivered overnight. And I got him some presents, and we did a scavenger hunt for his birthday through our house, and that's how we celebrated his 50th birthday. But since we were sitting there with COVID, I really had time to think about, wow, he's turning 50. I'm going to be 50 in a couple of years, and that sounds so old. And if I thought about it, whenever I would go out to a bar when I was in my 20s, if a 50-year-old person ever came up to me and talked to me, I would have given so much bad attitude, like, oh, no, that's like my grandfather. And it's, and I'm not saying that I look like a grandfather or not 50-year-olds look like a grandfather, but when you're in your 20s and you think you're invincible and you think you're the cutest thing in the bar, then anybody that's even over 40, you probably wouldn't even look at. But turning 50, though, I did a lot of evaluation of my past life. So I looked at, what have I accomplished in my life? What's my health like? Who are my friends? Are they my real friends? What's my family situation like? How is my relationship with some of my family? And I did all that before I even turned 50. I have to say, once you hit 50, or once I hit 50, all that overanalyzing things and about being older, for some reason, just went away. It was up until the time of my birthday, a couple of years before, because Andrew turned 50, and then I ended up thinking about it for that 2 years and 3 months until I turned 50, and then after that, everything seemed fine. I think I realized turning 50 is just a number. I feel like I'm in my 30s a lot of times. Some people say I probably act like I'm in my 20s because of my sense of humor, and I'm so sarcastic and stuff. And yes, maybe I do, but I think I'm young at heart in a lot of ways. And as you get to this milestone birthday, again, you start to review things. And I think my friendships is one of probably the first things I reviewed, where I look at friends and I said, are they giving what I'm giving in my relationship to them? And the answer was no for some of them. Some of them are high maintenance and just a lot of work and super sensitive. And I just said, this is not worth the effort. And you want to start bringing in a closer circle of friends. And that's exactly what I did. I have a smaller group of friends that does expand sometimes, but it's the people that I have are people that I really want to be in my life, and people that I love, and people that I will be sitting hopefully one day on a front porch in some nursing home, rocking in a rocking chair with them, having a glass of wine. And those are things that you think about as you get to these bigger birthdays. One of the things is that when I turned 40, I'm like, I really didn't care about a lot of things, about what people thought about me. I felt more comfortable about who I was. It's like being gay, for example, and coming out to people at work in my 40s, where I think in my 30s, even though I was living in New York City, in Miami, I told people I was gay and they knew, but I wasn't like coming in after a weekend saying, oh, me and my husband, and I was more, I kind of kept it in more. I was more secretive about it. And then when I turned 40, you don't care. You're like, this is who I am. And if you don't like it, then too bad. Then don't be friends with me. Don't work with me, whatever. But when I turned 50, I mean, all that, I look back at that, like how stupid was that of me to try to hide parts of my life because I wasn't comfortable. But I guess as you get older and you get more mature, you just get more comfortable and you just don't care. The other thing that I think is so strange about turning 50 was you look at certain people and you see how they have grown up. So I think one of the strangest things is that I have 2 nephews and a niece, and I've held them as babies. I was there their entire life. And what's really strange is that my oldest nephew is now got a very successful job. He's doing great. He lives in Manhattan by himself. He's starting this kind of awesome TikTok career, and I'm so proud of him. But I'm like, where did time go for him to get so mature and to grow up so fast? It's so crazy to me. And then my younger nephew has this fantastic job at a finance institution, and he's like going with his girlfriend on trips and posting on Instagram about all this great food that they eat. And, he's living this fantastic life of traveling and golfing and doing all this. And I'm like, I still see him as this little kid. And it's hard for me to kind of grasp, like, oh my God, he's an adult now, and it's crazy. And then my niece is in Spain abroad, has a boyfriend, and is like a young woman that's getting ready to graduate college and start a life. And it's insane that these kids grew up so fast. And they're not kids anymore. That's the thing. They're adults. And I'm like, where did that time go? How did these kids grow up so quickly? And I think that's overall, like, where did time go? Like, I'm in a relationship for 25 years. How did that happen? How did it go by so fast? And those are things that you just kind of over-evaluate maybe at times as you're getting older. One of the things I also have thought about up to getting to this age was you start thinking about death and how am I going to die one day? And I think everybody does that. But I think whenever you're get to one of these bigger birthdays, you start to think, wow, I'm 50 years old. If I live to be 75, I only have 25 years left. So I've lived 2/3 of my life. And that's really insane because I feel like I have a lot more I want to do before dying. So I finally have, 25 more years. If I live to be 80, I have 30 more years. I got a lot to do. I got a lot to pack in those next couple of decades. And you do think, well, how's my health? What am I doing to make sure I'm going to live a long life? I'm thinking about my husband's health and what does he need to do? Because I don't want to go into old age retirement and be alone. And that's something that I think I've driven Andrew, my husband, about. I drove him a little crazy about it over the last couple of years about, make sure you're doing this, make sure you're doing that, and make sure you're taking these vitamins, and just making sure that I don't want to be alone one day. Whenever we've worked our whole lives, I want to be able to go out and travel the world with my husband. And that's a really big piece of getting older that you think about what are you going to do when you retire? I've also heavily thought about what house are we going to live in? Where do we want to live in this country or the world? I prefer a city. Andrew prefers to be out in the middle of nowhere with no neighbors around us for miles. And so we're going to have to find a happy medium or have a house or apartment in a city and then have a country house for the weekends or figure that out. And those are things that you start to think about because we want to have an awesome retirement. And, if I look at our life, could only be 12 years away if I could retire at 62. Hopefully it would be 58. but it probably won't be, it will probably be 65 or 67 because we have a nice lifestyle, and our financial advisors basically said, if you want to maintain this lifestyle, you're going to need to keep working. So it's not going to be easy to get out of that. You do have different kind of frame of mind also as you get older when you're thinking about, how do I look? In some ways you care less about the way you look. So maybe you would, if I'm going out to see a movie, I'll put on some Lululemon pants and a t-shirt and not care about it. Where in my 30s, it would have had to be, I would have been all dressed up just to go to the movies and everything. My hair would have had to been perfect and everything. And now I'll throw on a baseball cap and not care. But what I do care about is I don't want to age and look old. So that's why Botox is important for me, doing it once a quarter, and putting on day cream and night cream and SPF and doing this whole skincare regimen, spending way too much money on it. But I do think it has helped me stay younger looking as I got older. And then the other big thing that I have thought about, and I think that my friend Jennifer and I have talked about this as well, but we think about our mothers. So both of our fathers have died, and our mothers are widows and live alone. And the thing is that you think my mom is 23. She lives in Illinois, and I live in Boston. And you think, oh, I don't see her enough, and I need to go see her more often. But where she lives is very hard to get to, and I have to make more of an effort to do that, because you do evaluate how much longer she's going to be around. She's had some health issues that are now pretty much resolved, but, there were some scary moments there. And, if she lives, to be 85, that means I only have 12 more years left with her. So if you think about that little bit of a time, it does scare me a bit, because I'm like, oh, I need her around another 50 years. That's what and you don't realize it until you really think about time went by so fast. How did my mom become 73? The other thing that I have done and evaluated is, what were my parents doing when they were 50 compared to what I'm doing when I am 50? And yes, I have a much different lifestyle than my parents did. And my parents had 2 kids, and, my mom made dinner every night and was a typical mom. And my dad would work, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And so they lived a very typical family life. But I have not lived that same life, and I have thought about what was my mom and dad doing at 50, and I've kind of gone back and thought about that. Where I was 28 years old when they were 50, and now that I'm 23 years later, what am I doing that they were doing? And I think we're completely opposite. So my parents are not thinking about doing podcast. Me and my friend Mandy still crank call people sometimes. I can tell you for sure my mom and dad were not crank calling people at the age of 50. And they probably, my mom and dad were going on trips with friends and vacations and stuff, but I doubt if they were getting all dressed up and going to a concert, like a Madonna concert, and dancing at 50. I could not see my mom dancing at a concert at 50 and doing the things that I've done. So you kind of compare yourself to what you were doing at 50 compared to what your parents were doing. And I think that it's just a different world now is what I have to kind of chalk it up to, or we're just different people. But I feel I'm a lot younger 50 than they were. And you think about your grandparents also, like what age did my grandparents die? And is that going to maybe be who I will be? Because my grandparents were in their 80s when they died. So is that kind of what my genetics is going to serve me? And hopefully, I would love to live into my late 80s. That would be a perfect life. I'm not looking to live to be 100 or 110. Living until almost 90 is kind of I think that's a great age to live to. And so you think about that, about when you're going to die, how you're going to die. You think about your friends and your family, and You cut out some family, you cut out some friends, and you kind of get your life in balance on where you think it should be. And that's exactly what I have done over the last couple of years. And getting ready to turn 51 in a few weeks, I am very happy about being this age. I don't have any regrets about anything that I have done over the past few years to get me into this mind frame. And I'm happy with the accomplishments that I've had in my life. And I think the only thing I have a regret for is that I just regret that we don't own a house yet and that we're still renting. But we sold our house and to move to Dallas, and everything happens for a reason, and we'll buy a house in a few years. But other than that, being 50 is fantastic. If you're there already, hopefully you feel the same way I do. If you're almost there already, I can tell you after you turn 50, you're not going to give a shit. And if you've got several more years till you turn 50, just stop for a minute, look around, and just think about what you're doing, because it's going to go by so fast, and just enjoy that time of being younger. So thanks for listening to my podcast. Don't forget to visit my website, everythingandanythingpodcast.com. Subscribe to my podcast on Spotify or Apple or any of your favorite podcast platform. And you can also send me a DM. Give me some thoughts about my show, The Real Zach RE on Instagram. Send me a message. Follow me on my page. You'll see what's coming up in the future. Thanks, and talk to you next time.